of our team rituals after a big event is that we all go together for dinner at the end of the evening. Usually that end of the evening is somewhere around midnight, maybe a little before that, but usually around midnight. And the team leader, his favorite place is Buffalo Wild Wings. So we eat a lot of Buffalo Wild Wings on Friday and Saturday nights around midnight to 2 in the morning. One particular morning, we rolled up 12:15. They close at 2 a.m. Take our seat. The server comes over to the table, and we said, we're ready to order if you're ready to take our order. Get all of our drinks ordered, get our appetizers ordered. We start going around the table with what we'd like to order. The first person says, I would like to have 10 flats, all barbecue, honey barbecue wings, make them extra wet. And this is no exaggeration. The server looked at him and said, I'm sorry, we're out of wings. What? It's in the name of your company, Buffalo Wild Wings. How can you be open for business and out of wings? What do you plan to sell if you have no wings at Buffalo Wild Wings? See, we thought because it was on the name, and we thought because it was on the menu, and we thought because they allowed us to come in and sit down, that we had the choice of ordering off the menu the item that is their brand name, but we were mistaken. And leaders, good leaders, know that the choices in front of you are not always the only choices there are. And sometimes the choices in front of you are a control mechanism just as well as no choice at all. That's what I want to talk about today on Leading Leaders. Life is frustrating enough as it is, but life is really frustrating when you feel like you've done your due diligence, you've done your homework, you've looked at all of the options, you've probably made a list. If you're a leader with any kind of training at all, you've made a list of pros and cons. You've gone through that list of, well, if I do make this choice, if this is the decision I make to go to college, get a job, start a career as a journeyman, join the military, marry this person. These are the pros. These are all the good things that are going to happen on the other side of that decision. And these are the negatives. Some would call them the cons, the negatives. These are the bad things that could happen if I make this decision over any other decision. So when I lay out all of my choices to buy this kind of car, go to this kind of school, buy a house in this zip code, lease for now, build a tiny home, whatever that option is, when I lay out all of the competing options of the same kind, I have my pros and I have my cons. And generally speaking, as a leader, we'll look at those and kind of weigh the balance between them. What are the better options? What if I do choose the pros of option A versus the cons of option C, because there's a whole lot more negatives to option C, then have I done the best thing for myself? And here's where the problem sets in. We've got to understand, and believe me, you've done the same thing as a leader before. I've done it as a parent before. As a parent, when my kids would get up in the morning and come down for breakfast and say, I want chocolate cake. No, you can have omelets, you can have pancakes, or you can have cereal. No, but I want chocolate cake. You're not getting chocolate cake. Okay, well then I want brownies. No brownies. You can have omelets, you can have pancakes, or you can have cereal. What am I doing? As a leader, I'm limiting the options. Now, if they want at this moment to weigh out the pros and the cons of cereal versus pancakes, that's fine. Maybe they ask, well, if I get an omelet, what's in it? If I get pancakes, what's on it? If I get cereal, what kind is it? Well, what is the problem with that? Nothing. There's no problem with that. But understanding that as leaders, we are on both sides of that fence. We are both predetermining, if you will, the outcome by selecting the options from which they can choose. And we also find ourselves in a place of choosing from the options that we're given. So we feel like we have free will. We feel like we have all the choices in the world. It's my decision. I have all the autonomy to decide what I want to decide. Well, you can, but if you want to go to Buffalo Wild Wings, and particularly that store on that night, I don't care how badly you want wings. You can change the flavors all you want to. You're not getting wings because they don't have any. Yes, that's frustrating. You might find yourself in a relationship where the thing that you want in your relationship, you just can't seem to get because it's not an option. It wasn't offered to you in that relationship. Maybe even you shouldn't expect it in that relationship. It's inappropriate to request in that relationship. To go to your boss and say, hey, listen, I've worked hard. I want 10 days off and $1 million raise. You might get laughed out of the office or maybe even terminated. You can ask for it all you want to. You can call that a choice. But if it's not an option that's on the menu, then the option of gaining it, getting it, well, it's simply not there. As a leader, we've got to be fair enough to realize while we're making these choices of the options that we'll lay out in front of our team, to carry on with this project or abandon it and move to another one, to stay with this project knowing that we're going to have to cut back on some of the costs, some of the innovations, some of the ideas that we threw out when we brainstormed this idea and said we're going to do it like this. Well, some of those are now off the table because the materials are too expensive, or we don't have the right teammates to actually pull this off anymore. We've lost some of our talent, or whatever the case may be. Oh, we can still allow the team to make choices. We can still allow the team to have their free will. We can still encourage them to make wise choices, do a pros and cons, do a SWOT analysis. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What are the opportunities? What are the traps? Oh, when we go through that process, we may figure out, okay, that wasn't a good idea to begin with, but it was one of the options. Every battle, every war, every author, every parent faces a series of choices. Those choices will be made from the options that are offered. Just understand that someone, somewhere, has determined which options you get to choose from. And the deeper we get into this world of the near psyops manipulation of our media, our health system, our government system, our tax codes, our EPA regulations, our housing regulations, our banking regulations, our social media regulations, the deeper that web gets, the more it seems like we have a plethora of choices. And yet, every one of the options laid before you to choose from have been chosen for you to choose from. Walk through that for a moment in your mind. When you go to the buffet, whether it's a Chinese buffet or the pizza buffet or the country dinner buffet, like what is that, Western Sizzlin'? Is that the one I'm thinking of? Not Luby's, that's a cafeteria. I'm thinking of the Golden Corral. When you've got all of the options in front of you. And many of them are not healthy at all. And many of them are just downright disgusting because they've been sitting there for 2 hours. Maybe you go to the Chinese buffet and you walk down that dessert aisle and you realize there's 42 things to choose from, and I would weigh 900 pounds if I ate everything on the option, everything on the menu. But you know what they don't have? They don't have Bluebell ice cream with cheesecake. All right, they don't offer that there. Not at the one that I've been to. But is it really a choice? Is it really an option? Well, of course it is. But your options are still limited, as vast as they may be, to the choices that are laid out before you. You can choose all you want to, but you only get to choose from the options that you're given. I want to challenge you as leaders to realize when and how you make those decisions. And I also want to challenge you to sometimes push back a little bit. Ask the question, are there any other options? Is there anything perhaps off menu? I know when my daughter worked at Sonic, one of her first 2 or 3 jobs, she had people that would come in and say, I want blah, 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 blah. And she's looking at the menu trying to find it. And sometimes the customer, sometimes the manager would tell her, it's an off-menu item. We have a recipe for it. Well, I learned later that there's actually an online game, if you will, where people have made up their own kinds of drinks. And they put a little bit of this and a little bit of that and some of this and one of those in there. And they mix it up and they come up with their own kind of frosty or shake or smoothie or drink or whatever they want from Sonic or from Starbucks or from many of these other fast food locations. Well, that's not an option. It's not on the menu anyway. It's not an option to anybody else. Well, unless you know how to ask for it. If you know the name of it and you know how to make it or you know how to tell them how to make it, you can ask the bartender for anything. They can mix up anything. It may not have a name yet, but that doesn't mean it's not an option. And the case is true in many places that you dine and many items that you buy, ways that you build things. And if as a leader you're willing to ask the question, who determined the options that I have to choose from? Then you should also be willing on the backside of that to say, here are the options that I've given you. Do I have any flexibility? Am I willing to hear you say, I want pancakes and an omelet? You know what I'd like? I'd like half an omelet and one pancake instead of two pancakes and a whole omelet. Is that an option? Because it's from the list. Could I make that available? See, now we've gotten into a place where we're talking about customer service. We're talking about deeper relationships. If you're controlling the options that people have to choose from, you have a chance to build some great loyalty here. You also have a chance to be a real hard-nosed and decide, nope, the option comes exactly like it's listed on the menu and nothing else. That's up to you to choose. But if you're controlling the options, flexibility might be a powerful opportunity for you. And if you're the one making choices from the options in front of you, before you make a choice, ask yourself, who's controlling the options that I have to choose from, and what direction are they trying to guide me in the options that they're laying out? I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.